She hadn't slept in 3 days. 7-year-old Aisha Johnson lay in her small bed in their 2-bedroom apartment on Oak Avenue, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Riverton settling into night. Car horns in the distance. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Her mother's soft breathing from the next room. But Aisha couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Tyler Morrison's face. She saw Jake's fist coming toward her stomach. She heard their laughter echoing in the school hallway. And worse, she saw the black car. The one that had been following her home for a week now. The one with the high school football sticker on the back window. The one driven by someone bigger, older, more dangerous than the boys at school. 3 days without sleep. 3 days of walking to school with her stomach in knots, dreading every hallway, every bathroom break, every moment when teachers weren't looking. 3 days since the man in the black car had rolled down his window, smiled at her a cold, predatory smile, and said 5 words that made Aisha's blood turn to ice. "I know where you live." Aisha was 7 years old. She loved dinosaurs. She collected stickers of puppies. She dreamed of becoming a veterinarian someday. But right now, in the darkness of her bedroom, Aisha Johnson was just trying to survive. And nobody, not the teachers, not the principal, not even the police, was going to help her. It had started 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday in late October. Aisha was walking to her 2nd grade classroom at Jefferson Elementary School when 3 older boys blocked her path in the hallway. Tyler Morrison and his cousin Jake were 5th graders, bigger, louder, meaner. The 3rd boy, Connor, was a 6th grader who just stood there laughing. Tyler knocked Aisha's backpack off her shoulder. Her books scattered across the linoleum floor. When she bent down to pick them up, Jake kicked them farther down the hall. Other kids walked past, heads down, pretending not to see. Teachers were already in their classrooms, doors closed. "Look at the baby," Tyler sneered. "Going to cry? Going to run to mommy?" Aisha didn't cry. Not then. She gathered her books with shaking hands and walked away, telling herself it was nothing. Just mean kids being mean. It would stop, but it didn't stop. The next day, they took her lunch money. The day after that, they shoved her into a locker. By the end of the first week, Tyler and Jake had made Aisha their favorite target. They'd wait for her in the hallways, follow her to the bathroom, whisper cruel things. When teachers weren't looking, "Nobody likes you. You're ugly. Your mom's too poor to buy you real clothes." Aisha started taking different routes through the school, trying to avoid them. But Riverton Elementary wasn't that big. There was nowhere to hide. Week 2. The bullying intensified. Tyler started tripping Aisha in the cafeteria. She fell hard one day, her tray clattering to the floor, food splattering across her shirt. The entire lunchroom erupted in laughter. Aisha ran to the bathroom and stayed there until lunch period ended. She stopped eating lunch after that. She'd hide in the library instead, pretending to read, her stomach growling. Jake began following her after school. He'd walk 20 feet behind her, just close enough that Aisha knew he was there, just far enough that she couldn't prove he was following her. Sometimes Tyler would be with him. They'd laugh and point. They'd shout things. "We know where you live, Aisha. Better watch your back. Tomorrow's going to be worse." Aisha started having nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, tangled in her sheets. Her mother rushing into her room asking what was wrong, but Aisha couldn't explain it. The fear felt too big for words. She stopped playing with her toy animals, stopped drawing pictures, stopped smiling. Aisha Johnson, the 7-year-old girl who loved dinosaurs and wanted to save animals, was disappearing inside herself. She was learning to be invisible, to be quiet, to survive. And the worst part? Aisha stopped being a kid. Tanya Johnson noticed the changes immediately. How could she not? Her daughter, her bright, chattering, curious little girl, had gone silent. Aisha stopped talking at dinner, stopped asking questions, stopped being Aisha. Then came the nightmares. 2, sometimes 3 times a night. Tanya would wake to the sound of her daughter screaming. She'd rush into Aisha's room to find her sitting up in bed, eyes wide with terror, hyperventilating. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Tell mommy what's wrong." But Aisha would just shake her head and cry. Tanya started finding bruises on Aisha's arms, her knees. Once, a nasty scrape on her elbow that Aisha claimed was from falling on the playground. But Tanya had been a nurse for 12 years. She knew the difference between an accident and something else. One morning, Aisha refused to go to school. She locked herself in the bathroom, sobbing, begging her mom not to make her go. "Please, mommy, please. I can't go back there. Please." Tanya's heart shattered. She called in sick to work a day she couldn't afford to lose and held her daughter for an hour until the crying stopped. Then Tanya made a decision. She was going to fix this. She was going to protect her baby. The next morning, Tanya marched into Jefferson Elementary School with fire in her chest. She demanded an immediate meeting with Principal Hicks. 20 minutes later, Tanya sat in a cramped office across from the principal and the school counselor, Mrs. Patterson. The office smelled like stale coffee and copy paper. A clock ticked loudly on the wall. Tanya didn't waste time. She told them everything. The hallway incidents, the cafeteria humiliation, the threats, the following, the bruises, the nightmares. Her voice cracked as she described finding Aisha sobbing in the bathroom, too terrified to go to school. "My daughter is being terrorized," Tanya said, her hands trembling. "Tyler Morrison and Jake Hendricks are making her life a living hell. You need to do something. You need to protect her." Principal Hicks leaned back in his chair, his expression indifferent, almost bored. "Miss Johnson," he said slowly, "I understand you're concerned, but from what I've observed, these are just normal childhood conflicts. Kids tease each other. It's part of growing up." Tanya stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. Mrs. Patterson jumped in with a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Aisha is a sensitive child," she said gently. "Perhaps she's misinterpreting playful banter as bullying. Sometimes children need to develop thicker skin. Learn to stand up for themselves." Tanya's voice rose. "She's 7 years old, being targeted by children twice her size." Principal Hicks held up his hand. "Miss Johnson, please, let's not be dramatic. Boys will be boys. This is how children learn social dynamics. If we coddle Aisha every time someone hurts her feelings, we're not preparing her for the real world." Tanya left that office shaking with rage and disbelief. She'd come seeking help, seeking protection for her child, and they dismissed her. Worse, they blamed Aisha. That afternoon, Tanya went to the Riverton Police Department. If the school wouldn't help, maybe the police would. Officer Davis, a middle-aged man with gray at his temples, listened patiently as Tanya filed her report. He took notes, nodding occasionally, his pen scratching across the paper. "So these older boys have been bullying your daughter," he summarized. "Verbal harassment, some pushing, following her after school." "Yes," Tanya said, "and I'm worried it's escalating. They know where we live. They're threatening her." Officer Davis set down his pen and gave her a sympathetic look. "Miss Johnson, I hear you. I do. But legally speaking, there's no crime here. Kids say mean things to each other. They push and shove. It's not pleasant, but it's not criminal. They're terrorizing her," Tanya insisted. "I understand it feels that way," Officer Davis said carefully. "But we can't arrest children for schoolyard conflicts. The school should be handling this through their disciplinary process." "The school won't do anything," he sighed. "Look, I'll make a note in our system. If anything escalates, if there's an actual assault, if the threats become specific and credible, call us immediately. But right now, my hands are tied. This is kids being kids. Call us if it gets serious." Kids being kids. The same phrase. The same dismissal. Tanya walked out of that police station feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. The people whose job it was to protect children, educators, law enforcement, had failed her daughter. And the frustration, the helplessness, was suffocating. That night, Tanya sat Aisha down for another conversation. "Baby," she said gently, holding Aisha's small hands, "I need you to tell me everything. Every single thing these boys have done. Even the scary parts." Aisha was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice so small Tanya had to lean in to hear it, Aisha said something that made Tanya's blood run cold. "It's not just Tyler and Jake anymore, Mommy." Tanya's heart stopped. "What do you mean? There's a bigger boy. In a car." "What bigger boy? What car?" Aisha's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know his name, but he's really big. Like a grown-up. And he drives a black car. He started following me home last week. At first I thought it was just there. But then I saw him 3 days in a row. And yesterday. He rolled down his window, and he said he knew where I lived. He said I better watch myself." Aisha's voice dropped to a whisper. "He was smiling, Mommy. But it wasn't a nice smile." Tanya felt ice spread through her veins. This wasn't schoolyard bullying anymore. This was a teenager, or possibly an adult, stalking her 7-year-old daughter, threatening her, following her home. Her little girl was being hunted. And the school, the police, they'd done nothing. They told her it wasn't serious enough. They told her to wait until something worse happened. How much worse did it need to get? Tanya called the police again that night. Told them about the car, about the threats, about the stalking. Officer Davis took another report, said he'd look into it. But his tone made it clear. Without a license plate, without proof, without an actual crime, there was nothing they could do. "If you see the car again, get the plate number," he said. "Then we can follow up." If she saw the car again, not when. If. As though this was optional. As though her daughter's safety was a matter of chance. That night, Tanya lay in bed listening to Aisha's breathing through the thin apartment walls. She heard her daughter whimper in her sleep. Heard her cry out. And Tanya Johnson, a nurse who'd spent 12 years caring for others, who'd always been strong, always held it together, broke down completely. She called her mother, sobbing into the phone. "I don't know what to do," Tanya cried. "Nobody will help us. The school won't listen. The police won't listen. And now there's some teenager threatening her, following her. And I can't. I can't protect her. I have to work. I can't be with her every second. What if something happens? What if I lose her?" In the next room, Aisha lay awake, listening to her mother cry, and something shifted inside her 7-year-old mind. Her mom couldn't protect her. The teachers couldn't protect her. The police couldn't protect her. Nobody was coming to help. So Aisha made a decision no 7-year-old should ever have to make. She was going to find her own protectors, and she knew exactly where to find them. 4 weeks earlier, back when Aisha's life was still normal, Tanya had taken her to Rosy's diner for breakfast. It was a Saturday morning treat. Chocolate chip pancakes for Aisha, coffee, and scrambled eggs for Mom. They'd sit in the corner booth and talk about Aisha's week, about her friends, about the book they were reading together. That particular Saturday morning, Aisha had noticed them immediately. The bikers, 8 of them, maybe 10, sitting at the long counter that ran along the diner's front window. They were huge men, leather vests stretched across broad shoulders, arms covered in tattoos. Their motorcycles gleamed in the parking lot outside, chrome and steel, powerful and loud. Aisha had never seen people like them before. They looked like characters from a movie. Dangerous, intimidating. Other customers gave them a wide berth, avoiding eye contact, speaking in hushed voices. But Aisha, curious as children are, watched them. She watched how they laughed together, deep belly laughs that filled the diner. She watched how the biggest one, a man with a gray beard and kind eyes, left a huge tip for the waitress. She watched how they held the door open for an elderly woman struggling with her walker. How one of them carried her grocery bags to her car. They were scary looking. But they weren't scary acting. And Aisha noticed something else. Everyone was afraid of them. The other customers, even some of the adults' people, looked at these men and saw danger. That morning, 7-year-old Aisha had a thought. If everyone is scared of them, maybe the bad people will be scared of them too. It was child logic. Simple, pure, and it had lodged itself in Aisha's mind. Now, 3 weeks into her nightmare, 3 nights without sleep, listening to her mother cry, Aisha remembered those men. She didn't know their names, didn't know they were Hell's Angels, didn't know their reputation or their history or anything about motorcycle clubs. She just knew they looked strong. She knew people were afraid of them, and she knew nobody else was going to help her. Wednesday morning, November 12th, 6:45 a.m. Aisha heard her mother turn on the shower. Tanya had the early shift at the hospital, 7 to 7, and she was running late, as usual. Aisha had maybe 10 minutes before her mom would come to wake her up for school. Aisha didn't hesitate. She climbed out of bed already dressed. She'd slept in her clothes. Planning this, she grabbed her backpack, stuffed her favorite toy dinosaur inside for courage, and slipped out the front door while the shower was still running. The morning air was cold. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, just a pale gray light spreading across the sky. Riverton's streets were empty, except for a few early commuters driving past. Aisha started walking. 4 blocks. That's all it was. 4 blocks. From her apartment to Rosy's diner. Aisha had walked it with her mom dozens of times. But alone in the pre-dawn darkness, those 4 blocks felt like 4 miles. Her hands were shaking. Not from the cold. From fear. What if they say no? What if they laugh at me? What if they're mean? What if Mom catches me before I get there? But a stronger voice answered back, what if they say yes? Aisha walked past Mr. Chen's grocery store, still dark, and shuddered. Past the laundromat, where the machines hummed even this early. Past the empty lot, where kids played basketball after school. With each step, her determination grew. This was her only chance. Her only idea. If it didn't work, she didn't know what she'd do, but she had to try. Because being scared of asking for help was nothing compared to being scared every single day. Scared to go to school. Scared to walk home. Scared to close her eyes at night. See, laying at her, Aisha turned the corner onto Main Street, and there it was. Rosy's diner, the neon sign flickering in the dim morning light, and parked outside, just like before, a row of motorcycles. 8 of them, chrome glinting, leather seats gleaming. They were here. Aisha stood across the street from the diner for a full minute, frozen. Through the window, she could see them. The same men from before. The big one with the gray beard sitting at the counter. Others in a booth. Coffee mugs. Plates of breakfast. Normal. Almost. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip her backpack straps to steady them. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Every instinct in her 7-year-old body screamed at her to run. To go home. To hide. These were grown men. Scary-looking men. Men her mother had told her never to approach. Strangers. Men, everyone else, avoided. But Aisha thought about Tyler's fist connecting with her shoulder. She thought about Jake following her home. She thought about the black car. The man's cold smile. I know where you live. She thought about her mother crying, feeling helpless and alone. And Aisha took a step forward. Then another. Then she was crossing the street. Then she was walking through the parking lot, weaving between the massive motorcycles that seemed to tower over her. Then she was pushing open the diner door, the little bell above it chiming. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. The bikers looked at her, this tiny black girl in a purple jacket with a dinosaur backpack, standing in the doorway at 6:55 inches the morning, alone. Aisha's legs felt like water. Her mouth was dry, but she walked forward. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. She walked right up to the biggest, most intimidating man she'd ever seen. The one with the gray beard and the leather vest covered in patches she couldn't read. The one whose arms were thicker than Aisha's whole body. Jack Ironside, Sullivan chapter president of the Riverton Hells Angels, looked down at this little girl standing in front of him, and he saw the tears in her eyes. The trembling. The absolute terror and absolute courage existing in the same small body. Aisha looked up at him. She opened her mouth, and she said the words that would change everything. I need you to walk me to school. The bad people are trying to hurt me. and nobody else will help. The diner went completely silent. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Forks stopped moving. Every single person in Rosy's diner heard this tiny 7-year-old girl ask the most feared men in Riverton for protection. Jack Sullivan, chapter president of the Riverton Hells Angels, 52 years old, Marine Corps veteran of 2 tours in Iraq, had seen a lot in his life. He'd seen combat. He'd seen death. He'd seen humanity at its worst, and occasionally, at its best. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for the sight of this terrified child standing in front of him, trembling, but refusing to run. Jack slowly lowered himself down, crouching so he was at Aisha's eye level. His voice, when he spoke, was gentle, soft, the voice of a man who understood fear because he'd spent 20 years teaching young Marines how to face it. "Sweetheart," he said, "where's your mama? Does she know you're here?" Aisha shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks now that she'd finally said the words out loud. "She's at home getting ready for work. She tried to help me. She went to the school and they said I was too sensitive. She went to the police and they said it was just kids being kids. But it's not just kids. There's bigger boys and they hurt me and follow me. And there's a man in a car, and he knows where I live, and I'm scared, and nobody will help, and I don't know what to do." It all came tumbling out in one breathless rush. 3 weeks of terror condensed into 30 seconds. And as Aisha spoke, Jack Sullivan's face changed. The confusion melted away, replaced by something harder, something protective, something furious. Behind him, Marcus "Ghost" Patterson, 64, 12 years Army Special Forces, stood up from his booth. He walked over and knelt down beside Jack, his massive frame somehow making itself smaller, less threatening, as he addressed this frightened child. "Little one," Marcus said in his deep rumbling voice, "we're going to help you, but we need you to tell us everything. Can you do that? Can you tell us about these people who are hurting you?" Aisha nodded and began to talk. She told them about Tyler Morrison and his cousin Jake, about the hallway incidents, the cafeteria humiliation, the stolen lunch money, the bruises. She told them about being followed after school, about the threats, about the nightmares, and then she told them about the car. "It's black," Aisha said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And the boy driving it is really big. Like a grown-up. He started following me last week. And 3 days ago he rolled down his window and said he knew where I lived." She paused, her small hands shaking. "My mom called the police, but they said there was no crime yet." "Yet?" Jack repeated, his jaw clenching. Aisha nodded. "This car," Marcus said carefully. "Can you describe it more? What kind was it?" "I don't know cars," Aisha said, "but it had a sticker on the back window. A football sticker from the high school." Jack and Marcus exchanged a look. Then Jack asked the question he already suspected the answer to. "Did you see the license plate?" "Sweetheart." Aisha recited the numbers she'd memorized out of pure survival instinct. And when she finished, Jack Sullivan's entire body went rigid, because Jack knew exactly who that car belonged to. Jack stood up slowly, his knees cracking. He turned to the other bikers in the diner and made a subtle gesture with his head. 3 of them immediately stood and followed him to the far corner of the restaurant, out of Aisha's earshot. They formed a tight circle, speaking in low, urgent voices. "Travis Morrison," Jack said, and the name alone made the other bikers tense. "Robert Morrison's kid?" Marcus asked. "The councilman's son?" The same. 17 years old. 3 formal complaints filed against him in the last 2 years. Harassment, assault, stalking. 2 involved girls from the high school. 1 involved a woman who worked at the grocery store. But nothing ever stuck. Daddy made it all disappear. Threw his weight around, threatened legal action, paid people off. The kid knows he's untouchable. Another biker, Tony Chains Rodriguez, spoke up. "And the school angle?" Jack's expression darkened. "Principal Hicks, Robert Morrison's brother-in-law, married to his sister. The whole thing is a family protection racket. This wasn't just bullying. This was a powerful family using their position to protect a predator. They'd built a system where complaints disappeared, where victims were silenced, where a teenage boy with dangerous impulses was given free rein because his father held political power. And that predator had just made his biggest mistake. He'd targeted a child under biker protection, because Aisha might not have known what she was doing when she walked into that diner, but she'd just done something profound. She'd asked for help from men who understood exactly what it meant to protect the innocent. Men who'd spent their military careers doing precisely that. Men who weren't afraid of councilmen or principals or corrupt systems. Jack pulled out his cell phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. "Get everyone," Jack said. "Every chapter within 3 states. Every vet we know. Every rider who's ever worn a patch. Tell them we need them here by 8:30 this morning. Tell them why." He looked at his watch. 7, 5. They had less than 90 minutes. And somebody call Aisha's mother. She's probably losing her mind right now. By 7:15, Jack made the call to Tanya Johnson's cell phone. Tanya answered on the first ring, her voice frantic and breathless. "Hello. Hello. Have you seen a little girl? 7 years old. Purple jacket." "Miss Johnson," Jack interrupted gently. "My name is Jack Sullivan. Your daughter is safe. She's with me at Rosy's diner, on Main Street." There was a moment of shocked silence. Then, "Who are you? Why is my daughter with you?" "I'm calling the police." "Ma'am," Jack interrupted. "Aisha came to us. She walked here alone this morning and asked for our help. She told us everything about the bullying, about Travis Morrison, about the school and the police turning you away. And ma'am, we're going to help her. But we need you here. Can you come to the diner?" Tanya was already grabbing her keys, already running for her car. By 7:30, the plan was set. Text messages had gone out to dozens of chapters across 3 states. Phone trees activated. Emergency contact lists engaged. The word spread like wildfire through the motorcycle community. Child in danger. System failure. Mobilize. Now. Bikers were rolling out from everywhere. From Pittsburgh, 20 riders fired up their engines and hit the highway, their motorcycles roaring in formation. From Harrisburg, 15 veterans strapped on their helmets and rode. From Philadelphia, a dozen members of an all-female riding club, called their bosses, said they'd be late to work, and pointed their bikes toward Riverton. From small towns and big cities, from VFW halls and American Legion posts, from garages and driveways across Pennsylvania, riders heard the call and answered it. They came because one of their own had made the request. They came because a child needed protection. They came because when the system fails, the Brotherhood doesn't. Tanya's car screeched into the diner parking lot at 7:22. She burst through the door, wild-eyed and terrified, and immediately spotted Aisha in the corner booth. The reunion was instant and emotional. Tanya swept her daughter into her arms, holding her so tightly, Aisha squeaked. "Don't you ever do that again," Tanya sobbed. "I thought something happened to you. I thought..." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm sorry, Mommy," Aisha whispered. "But I needed help." Tanya looked up then, really seeing the bikers for the first time. 8 massive men in leather vests, covered in tattoos and patches, watching this mother and daughter with surprising gentleness. Her first instinct was fear. These were exactly the kind of men she'd taught Aisha to avoid, but then she saw their faces. The concern, the protectiveness, the way they positioned themselves between Aisha and the door, instinctively guarding her. Jack approached slowly, keeping his movements non-threatening. He extended his hand. "Miss Johnson, I'm Jack Sullivan. I served 20 years in the Marine Corps. These men are my brothers. Most of them are veterans too. Your daughter is one of the bravest people I've ever met. She walked up to complete strangers and asked for help because every adult in authority failed her. That takes courage most grown men don't have." He paused, letting that sink in. "Ma'am, We're going to make sure she never has to be that brave again." Tanya looked at this man, this intimidating, leather-clad stranger, and saw something she hadn't seen in weeks. She saw someone who believed her, someone who understood the danger, someone who was ready to do something about it. She broke down completely. Weeks of frustration, fear, and helplessness poured out in gasping sobs. Jack handed her a napkin and waited patiently while she collected herself. "You'll really help her?" Tanya finally asked. "Ma'am," Marcus said from across the diner. "We're not just going to help her. We're going to make sure everyone in this town knows she's protected. No one will touch her. No one will threaten her. And Travis Morrison is about to learn what happens when you target the wrong kid." For the first time in weeks, Tanya felt hope. Real, genuine hope. By 8, the street in front of Rosy's diner was lined with motorcycles, chrome and steel gleaming in the morning sun. American flags mounted on several bikes, snapping in the breeze. The rumble of engines echoed off the buildings. 50 bikes. Then 70. Then 100. They kept coming. Veterans in leather. Gray-bearded grandfathers who'd served in Vietnam. Middle-aged men who'd fought in Desert Storm. Younger riders who'd done tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Women riders, mothers and grandmothers themselves, who understood what it meant to protect children. Entire families on bikes. Fathers with their teenage sons riding beside them, learning what it meant to stand up for the vulnerable. They came from 3 states. They left jobs, called in favors, canceled plans, broke speed limits to get there in time, because a 7-year-old girl had asked for help, and bikers, they answer that call. By 8:15, the crowd had grown so large that police had to redirect traffic. Officer Davis, the same cop who told Tanya there was nothing he could do, stood on the sidewalk, staring in disbelief at the assembly forming in front of him. Jack walked through the rows of motorcycles, greeting riders, shaking hands, explaining the situation in brief, clipped sentences. Every biker he spoke to had the same reaction: jaw clenching, eyes hardening, a nod of understanding. This was personal now. For all of them, inside the diner, Aisha pressed her face against the window, watching in amazement as the parking lot transformed into a sea of leather and chrome. "Are they all here for me?" she whispered. "Every single one," Jack said, kneeling beside her. "And we're going to walk you to school. All of us. And everyone is going to know that you're protected now." At 8:30 a.m., 200 bikers formed an escort formation in front of Rosy's diner. Aisha Johnson, wearing her purple jacket and carrying her dinosaur backpack, walked in the center. On her right, Jack Sullivan. On her left, Marcus Patterson. Behind them, 198 riders. The procession moved slowly down Main Street toward Jefferson Elementary School. The roar of 200 motorcycle engines shook windows, rattled storefronts, announced to the entire town that something had changed. People came out of their houses, stood on porches, watched in stunned silence as this army of leather-clad veterans escorted one small girl to school. Cars pulled over, drivers stared, and in the center of it all, Aisha Johnson walked with her head held high for the first time in 3 weeks. They arrived at Jefferson Elementary at 8:45. The school parking lot was chaos. Parents dropping off kids froze in their tracks. Teachers came out of the building. Principal Hicks stood in the doorway, his face pale. 200 bikers lined up in front of the school. An honor guard. A wall of protection. Jack walked Aisha to the front entrance. He crouched down one more time, eye to eye with her. "You're safe now," he said. "Do you understand? Nobody is going to hurt you. Not Tyler. Not Jake. And definitely not Travis Morrison. We'll be here when school lets out. And we'll be here tomorrow. And the next day. For as long as it takes." Aisha threw her arms around his neck. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack hugged her back, this battle-hardened Marine with tears in his eyes. "Thank you for trusting us, sweetheart." Inside the school, Tyler Morrison and Jake Hendricks saw the bikers through the classroom window. They saw the leather, the patches, the sheer overwhelming force, and they understood, immediately, that Aisha Johnson was untouchable now. Principal Hicks received a phone call 20 minutes after Aisha entered the building. It was Councilman Robert Morrison. And he was furious. "There are 200 bikers in front of the elementary school," Morrison hissed. "My son's car has been identified. The police are asking questions." "What the hell is going on?" Principal Hicks stammered. I don't know. The Johnson girl. She must have. Fix this," Morrison snapped. Now, but it was too late to fix, because by 9 a.m., every news outlet in the county had picked up the story. Bikers escort bullied child to school after system fails. Hell's Angels step in when police. School won't protect. 7-year-old. 200 veterans form honor guard for terrorized girl. The photos went viral. Aisha walking between rows of bikers. Jack Sullivan kneeling beside her. The sheer, overwhelming show of protection and love. By noon, the story had gone national. By 3 p.m. when school let out, the bikers were still there, all 200 of them. Aisha walked out of Jefferson Elementary, saw them waiting, and ran straight to Jack. He picked her up and held her while she cried happy tears. "I wasn't scared today," she said. 3 days later, Principal Hicks was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his handling of bullying complaints. 1 week later, Councilman Robert Morrison announced he would not be seeking re-election. 2 weeks later, Travis Morrison was arrested and charged with stalking a minor. His father's connections couldn't save him this time. The evidence was overwhelming. The public outrage was too loud. Tyler Morrison and Jake Hendricks were suspended and transferred to a different school. And Aisha Johnson? She went back to being a 7-year-old girl who loved dinosaurs and wanted to save animals. She made friends. She laughed. She slept through the night, but every morning at 7:45, Jack Sullivan and at least a dozen bikers showed up at Jefferson Elementary. They didn't have to. The danger was gone, but they did it anyway, because Aisha had walked into that diner and asked for help. And bikers don't forget that kind of courage. 6 months later, Tanya invited Jack and the riders to Aisha's 8th birthday party. They showed up. All of them. 200 bikers crammed into a community center, eating cake, singing happy birthday, watching this little girl blow out her candles. And when Aisha made her wish, she opened her eyes and looked at Jack. "I wished that all kids who need help find someone like you," she said. Jack Sullivan, the battle-hardened Marine who'd fought wars and seen death, broke down completely. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is show up. Sometimes, the most important battle you'll ever fight is protecting a child who has nowhere else to turn. And sometimes, the scariest-looking people have the biggest hearts. Aisha Johnson learned that the hard way. But she learned it, and now, she'll never forget it. If you believe no child should ever face danger alone, if you believe in standing up for the vulnerable, if you believe that real strength is using your power to protect the innocent, subscribe to this channel, comment below. Protect the innocent. Because every child deserves to feel safe. Every child deserves someone who will show up. Every child deserves their own army of angels. And sometimes, those angels wear leather.